Hello again from my front porch. Well, I'm here without my bony cohorts because the Halloween season's over. So my skeletal friends have gone back into their crypt, back in hiding, and instead we break out the fall-colored plaid. Fortunately, it's still a nice day, a little windy, a little breezy out there, but it's still rather nice here. But I'm told that coming this weekend, the temperature is going to start going back down. We got really spoiled this week with some really nice weather. But we're starting to shift the season, and we're in that home stretch before the election as well. It is literally just a few days away, and I, for one, am glad that it's almost done, because we're also in that gauntlet of political commercials, where it doesn't matter what TV show you're watching, there are very few ads for any products that you're going to see. Everything is political ads, either for a candidate or bashing a candidate. And well, you all know how I feel about the bashing candidate stuff. I can't stand that. It is unfortunately a huge part of what our modern political process has become. It's less about me telling you what I stand for and more about me telling you just how awful the other candidate is, because of course we want everyone to think we only have two parties. So you only have that choice. You don't get any other options, just those two choices. And so if I can make you believe that the other party's candidate is just horrible, well, then you'll vote for me just because you don't like the other candidate. And that I can't stand. In fact, there's one guy running for U.S. Senate here in Iowa who, from all accounts, he's a great guy. He's a retired military leader, has some strong work ethic backgrounds, seems pretty articulate, seems like a decent fellow. His name's Mike Franken. He's running as Democrat against Chuck Grassley, who is running for re-election in the Senate. Now, we can debate whether it makes sense for Grassley to run again. He's been in office for a very long time. He's not a spring chicken. If elected, I think, if I heard right, he'll be the oldest individual to be elected to the Senate, or the second oldest maybe. I forget where, but still pretty old. And now, I don't personally have a problem with Chuck Grassley. I think it's maybe a little odd that he's still running, but honestly, I'm not into ageism. I really don't care how old a candidate is. I care about, can they do the job? And at his age, if Chuck Grassley can still indeed do the job, there's no reason he can't run. There's no reason that we wouldn't vote for him. I mean, there's no term limits. I don't mind the idea of term limits either, but there are no term limits. And so there's nothing to say he can't run. And so if he can competently do the job, more power to him. I think he honestly is more competent than the individual currently carrying the title of president in our nation. And that is not a political dig. That is an observation of a man who clearly has mental failings, mental challenges. I really do not believe Joe Biden is doing the function of president in our nation. I think he is a figurehead, and a lot of unelected people behind the scenes are making all those decisions that we assume the president does, and that's troubling. Forget your party affiliation. That scenario of a group of unelected people being able to do things as president because they're behind someone who is just going out and attempting to make speeches, and even that poorly at times, that's troubling. But we'll get back to Joe Biden. He's done some stupid stuff here as part of the election buildup. In fact, that's our theme today, is political stupidity. And there's a lot of it out there, and especially right now as we're in this pressure mode, the race to the finish line. A lot of stupid stuff gets done and said, and I just shake my head, because I used to be very politically involved. I used to be very politically active, and I still believe that politics are important. We can't just ignore it. No matter how much we may roll our eyes and get turned off by it, still you can't just ignore it and let them do whatever they want to do. The whole point of our process is that we, the people, keep the politicians in check. So we have to pay attention. But it's so easy to tune out, especially right now. I literally, I do not know one single person who's going, you know, I just need to watch a few more commercials on TV for politicians, either for or against the politicians, and then I'll make up my mind. Everybody I've talked to already can tell you who they're going to vote for. In fact, a lot of them already have, through early voting options. But still, so that's out there. So let's get back to the stupidity. Mike Franken. Now, by all accounts, he's an intelligent guy. He's a smart guy. He's an articulate guy. Do I think he'd do a good job as a senator? Honestly, I don't know. And the reason I say I don't know is because he has, in my opinion, one of the absolute stupidest political yard signs. His political yard signs literally say, I believe Mike Franken can defeat Chuck Grassley. Now, first of all, what kind of a moron spends their own campaign money to put their opponent's name on their sign? That just makes no sense whatsoever. Except that what that sign tells me is that a vote for Franken isn't really a vote for Franken. It's a vote against Grassley. Now, if you don't like Grassley, okay, great, that's fine. But see, I hate this whole vote against somebody thing. Because if your whole campaign is vote for me so that I can defeat the other person, well, if you are successful on election night, we know that's what happened. And then what? See, Franken's running for the United States Senate. That is a 6-year term. 6 years. Elect me and I'll defeat Chuck Grassley. Okay, great. Boom. That's done election night. What is he going to do for the next 6 years? Honestly, I can't tell you. And I've had some people say, well, you just go out and look at his website. I shouldn't have to go out and look at his website. I shouldn't have to research to find out why he's running, to understand what he stands for. Near as I can tell, the only thing he stands for is defeating Chuck Grassley. And I'm sorry, but I think that's lame. I think that's intellectually bankrupt. And people who rabidly support that are just indicating they have a vendetta against Grassley, and they don't really care. It could be a seeing eye dog running against him. They don't care. They'd vote for him. And that's utter stupidity. That is unhinged irrationality. I don't get that. Yeah, you don't like this person. You want him out of office. So come up with a better alternative, someone who can do the job better, not just an alternative. But I mean, for crying out loud, this is what we had when we had Joe Biden running against Donald Trump. Oh, vote for Joe Biden because anything's better than Trump. Well, yeah, maybe in some ways, and I'm not a Trump fan. I'm glad he's gone. But then again, I sit back and I look at Biden and I'm like, was this really? Did we really gain ground here? Really? I mean, just between the two people? Because I have zero confidence that Joe Biden is actually, at this point in his life, unfortunately, mentally capable to serve as president of the United States. But he's surrounded by people who are protecting him and insulating him from there being any real scrutiny of what he's doing. But speaking of Joe Biden, he's made some comments lately that just, I mean, it reeks of desperation because by all accounts, Democrats are about to get a thumping in the midterm elections, and that they could lose control of both chambers of Congress, which they currently possess. But there's a lot of hand-wringing. The Democrats are going to go down in flames, and that a large part of it is because of dissatisfaction over what the Biden administration has or hasn't been able to do. But one of the things, I saw a video of him out there bragging that he had signed an executive order to release from prison the individuals who were in jail for marijuana crimes. Well, you see, the problem is that I don't think there really are that many, because I'm not even aware of there being federal marijuana laws. There's a push for there to be federal marijuana laws because different states say it's legal and other states, like here in Iowa, say no, it's not legal. Then there are variations of what other things can or cannot be legal. It's all confusing, and so there's a push for there to be federal legislation that could define those things and set just here's for the entire nation what those laws are, but they don't currently exist. So I'm not really quite sure. So here's the President of the United States bragging that he has done this great act, like we're all supposed to go, well, good for you, Mr. President, good for you. And I'm sitting back going, how many actual prisoners is he talking about? Because he can't release the local municipality or state level prisoners who are arrested on laws from the state or the city where they live. The president can't just sign an executive order and release all those people and commute their sentences and whatever. So he can only do for the federal prisoners. And so how many? I'm really not aware of there being that many, Mr. President. Who are you even talking about here? But that's an example of making up something so that you can brag about it. I did this, and I want you to think it's a big deal because I'm making it sound like a big deal, even though it's not really as big a deal as I'm making it sound like. But an even better thing, and this is what I have to read you this. This is a couple of days ago. This was a big thing on Twitter because this is what the White House posted, and I want to read this verbatim. The White House official Twitter said, seniors are getting the biggest increase in their Social Security checks in 10 years through President Biden's leadership. Literally, that is what the White House tweeted. Now, the problem with that is, and in fact, since then, Elon Musk famously now has purchased Twitter. Since then, that tweet actually got fact-checked with what I'm about to tell you. Because this is the God honest truth. In 1972, then President Richard Nixon signed legislation that had been created by a Republican Congress that said that we were going to tie Social Security increases to the rate of inflation. And so wherever inflation is at, when it's time for the increase, that's what the cost of living for Social Security increase would be. We're tying these things together. And it's been that way every single year since 1972. That's 50 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decades of this kind of legislation being in place. And that it happens automatically without anything from the president doing any. These increases just happen. It's the law. And so here's the White House trying to say, you can thank Joe Biden for you getting one of the biggest increases in over a decade. Blah, blah, blah. Well, technically it is true. Now, Biden had nothing to do with generating the increase. He didn't sign anything. He didn't say, I want to give people more money for the. However, Biden and his administration do seem to be responsible for us having this massive high level of inflation. The rate of inflation is really high, and since the Social Security regular annual cost of living increase is tied to the rate of inflation, I guess in a roundabout way you can say Joe Biden's responsible for Social Security recipients receiving that level of increase because you're saying then Joe Biden is responsible for the inflation. Now, of course, his apologists are out there going, no, he's not responsible for inflation. Well, there's a global tough inflation, and his corporate greed is doing that, and there's these things here, and that things here. Republicans haven't done anything, and Joe Biden's done that. Yeah, well, you just turned around and said, thank Joe Biden for the rate of increase you're getting in your Social Security cost of living, which is directly tied to inflation, which means Joe Biden, since he had nothing to do with setting up that connection, that annual rate increase, the only thing Joe Biden then had anything to do with was the rate of inflation. Somebody did not think this through. I mean, that's stupid. But even here's the even funnier thing. I now read that after it was fact-checked, that tweet was fact-checked on Twitter, which stuff like that didn't used to happen before Elon Musk bought it, so thanks, Elon. But when the White House deleted the tweet. Now, I don't know how they got away with that because the previous occupant of the White House Said a lot of crazy, stupid stuff on Twitter and deleted some of his tweets. And there was all this caterwauling. Oh my God, the president of the United States, he can't be going to the National Archives spokespeople were out there saying, no, by law, the president, all this has to be kept and made. He can't just go and delete tweets. No, that's how you can't do it. Nobody has said anything about the Biden White House deleting that tweet. I'm waiting. I'm sure it's coming. Sure. Speaking of the previous occupant of the White House, he, of course, has not gone away. He has not gone quietly into that good night, much to the chagrin of a lot of people. But he's actually out there actively campaigning for some folks, and I understand why, because he is very popular with a lot of folks still. Not with me, but with a lot of folks. As part of that, the previous Republican president is out there bad-mouthing Republican candidates. Not all of them, but select ones, where he's bad-mouthing Republican candidates because they are a Republican that he doesn't personally like, or more likely, a Republican who didn't side with him during his impeachment things. Now, if we go off track with that, I don't think either of the impeachments were valid, personally. I think they were political hit jobs. I think the evidence was scant at best, and I think it was kangaroo courts. Done and pure partisan line votes. It was just as bad as when Bill Clinton was impeached. What he was impeached for was thin and clearly just an attempt for Republicans to try to get at him. It was a political. In fact, the very first impeachment we had with Andrew Johnson after Lincoln's assassination was the same thing, where it was Republicans trying to take out a Democrat who is now the president of the United States because they didn't get along. Ironically, because that Democrat wanted to still follow Abraham Lincoln's softer stance against the South, but the Republicans in the Congress wanted to make them pay, and so they butted heads, and so that there was this showdown over that. The only one real legitimate impeachment, in my opinion, is the one that would have been against Richard Nixon. Because at that time, it was clearly based on criminal violation, and it was the president's own party, a Republican-led Congress, that was gearing up to impeach him. And so he resigns before the impeachment proceedings even begin. But in my opinion, that was the only one time when that impeachment process actually had legitimacy and wasn't just being used as a partisan political weapon. But I digress. I still think it's politically stupid, so it fits in with political stupidity. But I was talking more about the election cycles going on. So Trump is out there bad-mouthing Republicans who are actually running right now, while the Republicans are trying to gain seats in both chambers, and Trump's out there bad-mouthing some of them. It's like, somebody sit this idiot down and tell him, wait till after the election at least before you're spouting off your nonsense. And he's also out there really waving the flags, ringing the bells, making it clear that he really is giving serious thought to and planning to run for president again in 2024. Now, there again, a lot of people are like, yeah, but you see, why do that leading up to the midterms? Why? Because what that does is give red meat to the Democrats, because they very successfully elected a man to the presidency who I still, at one time in his life, maybe he was mentally competent to do that, but I don't believe he is now. But they were able to get him into office because they so successfully ran an anti-Trump campaign. They just beat him up every single day, how bad and awful he was, everything, every way. And it ultimately worked. And so here's Trump's genius move. I'm going to come out of the woodwork and start making myself a presence in the election again before the midterms, so that Democrats can again use me as, well, if you vote for this Republican, they're going to pave the way for Trump, and that kind of stuff. It's like, Trump, shut up. It's kind of like the Supreme Court. Everyone's like, oh, the Supreme Court now is controlled by the Republicans. Oh, did you see what they did with Roe v. Wade? Oh, see what they're trying to do. Yeah, well, I'm assuming that was not a political decision. And the reason I assume that is because if it was a political decision, it was a stupid political decision, because all that has done is now made it so that literally every race, I don't care what office, at what level, every race now, this election is about abortion because of what the Supreme Court did with Roe v. Wade. Had the Supreme Court waited until after the midterm election to do what they did, it still would have been bad. It still would have been, the impacts of what it is, but it wouldn't have then given the Democrat side all this ammunition to work with. And so if that was a political decision, it was a stupid political decision, because that may very well come back to bite them. Republicans might have done better than they otherwise now will do because of that Supreme Court decision. But the last one I'm going to talk about here, my political stupidity, is I was going to say my good friend. He's not. He's not that he's not my friend. But Eddie Andrews, who's been here on the show, and I've talked to him a couple of times. Great guy. I really don't know him personally all that well, but I know him by reputation, and I know him from, having chatted and spoke with him. I also know him from the barrage of mail that I get. Just over the last 2 weeks, I've gotten all kinds of flyers in the mail about Eddie Andrews. Vote for Eddie Andrews. I got here. Let's see this one. Vote Eddie Andrews. This one's just promoting that the election's coming up. Don't make sure you don't miss the election. I've got Governor Kim Reynolds endorses Eddie Andrews. Here's what he's going to fight for. I've got vote for him. It's been an honor serving, and and here's the stuff that I'm going to do. And he's again here with Governor Kim Reynolds. Here's another one with Governor Reynolds, encouraging to vote, to go out and fight. That's all stuff I've gotten for Eddie from him or on behalf of him. And the reason he was on the front porch is not because I was endorsing him, for elections specifically, but because he runs a very positive campaign. He does not talk about his opponent. He does not. He doesn't go around saying, vote. They're horrible. You don't want to vote for him, which, by the way, leaves me. That's not his approach. His approach is, and all of this stuff here, and then all of the, I was talking with him as well. He's very positive. He's very, very outgoing with, this is what I would do. There are some of the things that he may stand for that I don't agree with, but that's the case with every person. I like Cindy Axne is running for Congress. I like Cindy Axne. I've got her sign in my front yard, and along with Eddie Andrews. And a lot of people are like, well, how do you got those two together? Because I respect her. I don't agree with everything she stands for, but I respect the way she presents herself. Now, unfortunately, her and her campaign have engaged in the negative stuff. So that's why she's not been a focus of what we've talked about here. But I'm just illustrating, and I'm not like one side or the other with this. What I like about Eddie Andrews is he's a very positive candidate. Now, some say, well, that's just a show. That's just a front. Well, maybe if it is, he pulls it off really well. I'll just say that. And even if it is just a front, at least it's a very positive front. And again, all of the mailing that I've received from him and those on his behalf are all very positive. By contrast, I have two other mailings here about Eddie Andrews. And these are hit pieces about he's been accused of fraud, that our Attorney General says he has a chronic pattern of delay and broken commitments and all this stuff here. 200 complaints, including making unauthorized withdrawals from customers' accounts, which that goes back to 2005. Thousands in unpaid taxes and fines. That goes back to 2001, if you read the fine print. Sued for thousands of dollars in unpaid services to Iowa businesses. Again, that goes back ways. Now, and this one's more of the same. This one is made to look like a big text message, and it's got these supposed these allegations against him of Iowa fraud department. Eddie Andrews' company made unauthorized withdrawals. Eddie Andrews' company was sued 7 times. Eddie Andrews has been personally sued for $127,000 in unpaid bills. Eddie Andrews has been sued for $100,000 for unpaid service. There's all these, and those sound really bad, don't they? Well, again, most of those things are like 2 decades ago. And those mailings conveniently tell you he was charged or he was sued. And they don't say how those things turned out. Did you catch that? Nothing here says he was found guilty of things. It says you can sue anybody for anything. Now, I'm not saying he's an angel. I'm not saying that some of this stuff didn't happen, but what I do know is that's 20 years ago, and a lot of stuff changes over 20 years, or at least can change. And the fact that there are none of these things that have a more recent date than that tells me things did change. Whatever happened in that window of time is not what is still happening now. To me, that's actually a plus. I like knowing that somebody tripped, stumbled, fell, made mistakes, whatever, learned from those, grew, and they've moved on. And they're not that person anymore. That, to me, it's like, hey, thank you for illustrating that to me here. But the other thing that these are, don't vote for Eddie. You know what they don't tell me? Who should I vote for? Nowhere in these do they mention the other major party candidate. Now, I've seen the other candidate signs, but off the top of my head, I'd swear I can't think of their name off the top of my head. Because I've literally received no mailing from that person telling me what they would do, what they're going to do for anything. I have received all of these from Eddie. Eddie came to my door. Another worker for him at a different time came to my door. Eddie came to one of our Filipino group functions. I got a chance of it, and he didn't show up to make speeches. He just showed up to be there and enjoy some of the festivities and fun, have some food, and yeah, sure, he talked to a few people that came up to him and visited with him, but he didn't make a big deal about it, you know, and I appreciate all of that. Then I also have these anti-Eddie mailers, but they say nothing about who his opponent is or why I should vote for his opponent. The message of their stuff is clear. It's just like that stupid Franken sign I talked about at the beginning that says, hey, don't vote for that guy, which then leaves me, which I think is politically stupid. I just cannot endorse that. I cannot wrap my head around that. And the person that is also running for the office that Eddie's running for re-election to, probably a nice guy, probably a really great fellow. I'm sure if I hung out with him, got to know him, I'm sure I'd think he was a swell fellow. But this, to me, this does not help him. This does not cause me to want to vote for him. This stuff causes me to want to vote for Eddie because he tells me what he will do and he's positive about it. So, as if it matters to any of the political people out there who are listening, but if somebody happens to catch it, please take this to heart. Stop telling us who's bad. We can figure that out. Stop telling us who we should not vote for. We can figure that out. Tell us why we should vote for you. What about you, other than you are not them, what about you makes you worthy of our vote? That's the part that is missing in way too many campaigns. And that's why they resort to political stupidity to make up for it. All right, that's it. That's my political spiel before this election. And with that, I will see you all next time from my front porch.